I've been raising my hand saying it's time to fix this and like really do something about it. And so many people are like, there's nothing you can do, Eric. You just have to let it be.
What we had found is that everybody likes to recruit associates by telling them that they have great mentorship and training programs. But then once they get in the company, they don't have any good structured mentoring or training programs. And so we have one program that is just for associate dentists, and they're learning the really foundational tools, mindsets, and habits on what the most successful dentists are doing.
It's not about hiring dentists. It's actually about learning how to develop people into the future that they wanted. And so when I had that mindset shift, Gary, that's when everything changed. And that's kind of what we're carrying into these programs we built.
Welcome back to another episode of Dental Marketing Theory. I'm your host, Gary Bird. I'm the owner of SMC National, where we help offices just like yours level the playing field against the big guys out there so you can grow the way that you want, but you can't grow if you don't know how to keep your associates. And today I have Josey and Eric. If you don't know them, you've lived under a rock, and they're going to be going over how to actually solve this problem. And not only are they solving it and writing the playbook on this, they're actually working with the associates directly, as well as the owner doctors. And at the end of the show, they're going to give you a special discount to come to a boot camp that's coming up very, very soon. And you're not going to want to miss this. So make sure that you watch all the way to the end, because you'll get that discount code. I know dentists love those discount codes. And also, if you just want to solve the problem, if you've been in the muck for amount of time, you know that it's painful to deal with associates. Or if you are an associate, you know it's hard working with owner doctors. They're tackling this problem, and I love their solutions. You're going to want to stay tuned for this one. All right, we are live, and today is a very, very special episode because I have two amazing people with me that have done amazing things in the dental industry, and it's awesome when I get to do a podcast with them. I've done multiple with them across different time periods in their careers, and it's so cool to see what they're doing because they're taking on one of the hardest things in dental that most people frankly just will not touch. And so they're figuring it out. And what I've seen over the years is that everybody wants to grow. So everybody has their projections for next year's growth. Everybody, every DSO, every group, every solo practice says, this is what I want to do next year. And it usually revolves around dentists doing dentistry. And the problem is there's not enough dentists to do this. And so people say, man, I want to do this thing. I want to grow. And they just don't have it. They can't hire an associate, or they do hire an associate and they're not the right associate, or they hire the right associate and then they save up their money and they leave and become a competitor down the street. And this is a big problem. So Dr. Eric, why don't you tell me what you guys are doing to solve this problem?
Well, the first thing that we're doing is that, like you just said, we're kind of just acknowledging what's caused us to be where we are right now. And you know, if you think about it, like everybody has a vested interest in why we are where we are. Associates, like they've got $500,000 of debt. They're just trying to figure out how to get what they signed up for years ago when they decided to be a dentist, right? And then the rest of the industry, like, what have we said? We said, listen, don't worry. Just be an associate and we're going to take care of everything for you. You just show up. We take care of the rest. But it turns out that's been a big lie, right? Because they show up and like, I don't want you to have to bleep out stuff, but we all know if you practice dentistry, you're like sinning. You know, you got a bunch of like skeletons in the closet and things aren't working. And so end of the day, nobody's getting what they want, Gary. And we're the first ones to step into it and say, you know what's funny? As I've been raising my hand saying it's time to fix this crap and like really do something about it. And so many people are like, there's nothing you can do, Eric. You just have to let it be.
I think I'm one of the people that told you one time when we were talking, I was like, I would love to solve this. I don't know how to solve it. So Josey, Dr. Eric, you did a great job of like breaking down the what. Tell me a little bit about like the how. Josey, like how are you tackling this from an operational standpoint?
We're tackling it through two really important programs. One of them is for the associate dentist themselves. What we had found is that everybody likes to recruit associates by telling them that they have great mentorship and training programs. But then once they get in the company, they don't have any good structured mentoring or training programs. And so we have one program that is just for associate dentists, and they're learning the really foundational tools, mindsets and habits on what the most successful dentists are doing. And we'll tell you it's not adding new clinical procedures. It's actually some very basic foundational things to help them be more productive. And what we found from interviewing hundreds of associates is they feel no sense of control and no sense of fulfillment. And so helping them find both of those things, training program is one thing that we're doing. The other thing that we're doing is we have found that no matter what type of training or support we provide for an associate dentist, if there's not the right leadership and leadership systems inside the practice, the group, or the DSO, then these things they fail. And so we're helping those people who act as clinical leaders to help them build the systems and processes they need to find and train and grow great dental associates.
Wow, that's really good. So I'm going to tackle this from a different angle, and I would love your thoughts on it. So the average American retires around 62 years old. The average dentist retires at 69 years old, which is crazy because they make way more money than the average American. And I posed this question in a Facebook group. I had 150 comments, and it was pretty much 50-50. Half of them said, oh, no, we just do it because we love it. And the other half said, we're broke. We don't have money. And both of those problems come up because when you, in my opinion, is you either didn't figure out how to keep an associate or you never were able to get them to begin with. And as you get older, you have to figure this out. Like, and for me, from a business owner standpoint, you have to figure out, how am I going to get somebody else in? Because dentistry is hard on your body. Dr. Eric, I know you and Josey both ran like a very, very successful group, and you made a lot of mistakes and you did a lot of things right when it came to doctors. Could you walk through like your history on that and like what you think about the landscape of associates? Because I love what you guys are doing to solve this problem.
Yeah, Gary, first, like to your point about retirement or whatever that means in this day and age, I'll tell you, like, what I'm seeing is that I've never seen anything like this. Young dentists want out of dentistry. Like I have dental students that are telling me, Eric, I don't want to practice. I want to run a group like you did. And I'm like, well, I did that because I practiced. Like, it works both. Like, but I've never seen such high volumes of this. And there's this collective misery that has grown inside of dentistry that people are connected to, and they say, hey, like, this isn't working. So I'll put a pin in that as a piece of it. But, everything that Josey and I are getting the opportunity to share was really born in our experience, like having to deal with it every day. I've hired hundreds of associates, both in my company and for other companies now. And you learn a lot when you're like drinking from that fire hydrant, early on, Gary, I actually think of it like there's these stages, because I was talking to one of my coaching clients who's got a group, and they're like, here's where we are. And I'm like, yeah, you're at stage one. And stage one is that when you're growing a group, you'll do anything to get an associate in to just show up. It's like you say anything, you think everything's going to be perfect. There's almost an absence of reality there. And then in stage two, it's almost like you recognize, instead of trying to please these doctors, we have to figure out how to serve them on their journey. And that transition was me discovering my doctors didn't know how to be successful. They didn't know. And we think that a lot of that stuff, and success has nothing to do with graduating dental school, has nothing to do with knowing how to do a crown or a filling or whatever. They actually didn't have the skills to be able to get what they wanted out of the career. And the other thing that I'm finding is they don't know where to find those skills. And so, like, that was kind of the starting point. It's almost like, when you have associates, when you've decided that your company is going to grow through associates, it's not about hiring dentists. It's actually about learning how to develop people into the future that they wanted. And so when I had that mindset shift, Gary, that's when everything changed. And that's kind of what we're carrying into these programs we built.
I love that. And Josey, so when I hear about associates and I talk about it with people online, I get the same kind of vibes that from like the hygiene side, where like the hygienists like blame the doctors, and the doctors all, and there's no common sense on either side. It's like, nope, it's 100% their fault. They're horrible people. And it's like, man, that's a big gap to close from both sides. And I get, it's not as active like with the associates. I think you don't get as much chatter online about it, but it's definitely there. It's like, nope, the associates, It's almost like, a kid on my lawn with the ball thing. You know what I mean? It's like, man, these kids are on my lawn. They keep throwing the ball into my lawn. I'm just going to build bigger fences. That's going to solve it. And the kids keep punting the ball into the yard. And it's like, you never actually get to a solve on it. What are you seeing? Because I know you live in both worlds. So like, what are you seeing as the actual pain points here? And what are people missing?
I think it can really come down to one thing on both sides of the fence, and that is the expectations aren't realistic. And so we talked a lot about how associate dentists believe that me being an associate is that I go to work and that I have all of the patients that I need and I have a team that is trained for me and all I have to do is sit down and do the dentistry and everything else is taken care of. And what we believe from the company side is, oh my gosh, I hired a dentist. Dentists are smart and dentists are problem solvers and dentists should be able to come in and know how to be productive in their operatory. They should know how to train a dental assistant. They should want to do all of these things to make their life better and more productive, when in fact we're both lying to ourselves. And so part of, I think, what's really important is that we have these really meaningful conversations. And that's one of the things that we have found be really beneficial in our associate program is helping to facilitate and open up really important conversations between what the company feels like is important and what the associate feels like is important, and really empowering the associate to say, hey, actually, what happens in your operatory is really dependent on you and what you're going to do and how you're going to communicate. And are you going to take control of what happens when this dental assistant works with you or what happens when this patient sits in your chair? It's not going to be handed to you. So I think that we have to bring down those walls from the expectations from the associate and the company and start to have more meaningful conversations about how we're going to collaborate and work together. Would you agree with that, Eric? What would you say that I missed?
What I heard you saying, Josey, is that we're each blaming the other party. Like, it's your fault. No, it's your fault. No, it's your fault. No, it's your fault. No, it's your fault. And then we both say, screw you. Like, I'm out. Like, or you're out. It's just not working. And so, it's actually a very immature game that we're playing in a sense. I don't mean, I'm not like saying everybody's immature. I'm saying that though, like what people aren't doing is like really looking at the perspective from the, and it goes both ways. Like, associates have to recognize, if this company can't be profitable in having me here, I don't have a place. Just as the company has to be saying, listen, if we can't develop this associate to be able to be profitable and get what they want out of their lives, they're not going to stick around.
It's kind of like flipping over the Monopoly board mid-game. You know what I mean? Like, no one wins really, right? It doesn't. If the associate leaves after a year, associate didn't win. You didn't win. If the associate, if you fire the associate after the year, no one won in that scenario. No one. The patients don't win. Your team has to reset. And it's like, we talk a lot about like replacement cost of teams. Like, I can't even imagine what the replacement cost of a dentist is after, because you don't let a dentist go like right away usually, right? It's usually this long drawn out thing that you have to do.
Gary, we've done the math. And the math is scary. Like that, to your point, you've heard all the studies. You've heard the HR data that says the cost of replacing a team member is equal to 1 or 1.5x or 50% of their annual income. First, like, that's a ton if we're talking about a dentist. But we sat there and we said, that can't be accurate. Let's break it down, right? But the first thing, like, people are paying $30,000 a head for headhunters to find them a new dentist right now. Then we've got all the failures and lost revenue. We've got the loss of profitability because the dentist wasn't performing in the first place. We've got downtime. We've got patient loss. See, that's the other thing with dentists that people don't account for. When the dentist sucks, your patients never come back. Then they trash you online. You've read the reviews, right? And so like then we also have who covers. Well, is it the owner dentist that started the group that's now not doing other things? I mean, listen, it's like the mathematics on it is like, it's like quantum math, right? Like, it just gets messed.
It gets really hard, and it starts, like you said, it compounds in so many ways that you can. And the dentist touches most of your team members too. So now that's like a front desk doesn't touch everybody in the office. If you replace them, it's more seamless. There's still stuff that they have to do, but a dentist touches so many people in your office that now you have to retrain on all of that kind of stuff too. So yeah, and the other thing that I've seen too that really hurts offices that I would love your thoughts on is like, a lot of people don't realize that they kind of have to take a step backwards typically when adding associates. And it's like this weird, and dentists think it's unique to them, but you guys know, entrepreneurs, there's been multiple times in my career where I had to take a step backwards financially to take a massive leap forward financially. And it's very scary and it's very painful and it's very not enjoyable. But it was like, this is the only way forward. We have to hire these people and to move forward as a company. In dental, there's almost like this weird tension where you read about it online where no, we're not going to give you this. We're not going to give you that. How do you guys work through with the owners with that and help their mindset with that?
Well, what I heard you say, Gary, was investment. That's what you just said, is that at times inside of the business cycle, we have to invest in something that we expect to see pay us a return later in the future. And I remember when we hit that inside of our company, when Josey and I ran into that wall, we had a revolving door for dentists. It wasn't working. We had underperformers. And we asked the question, we said, well, what do we have to do to solve it? And the first question we asked is, where do we learn the skills that we need to be able to do it? Which there's literally nothing. Until Josey and I just built this program, nothing exists in the dental industry to solve that problem. They said, what are the systems to hire dentists? And so we said, well, somebody has to invest in it. And it became my full-time job for 2 years, Gary. For 2 years, plus 1.5 additional employees that was helping me to build the systems, test the systems, put them in place, make the adjustment. It took us 2 years of my pay and their pay. We invested well over $1 million in getting our company there. But when we got that system in place, all of a sudden, now we had a treasure trove, right? Everything else became easier when we did that. Actually, I'll tell you, the real secret was that instead of having to change the culture of the dentists that were already in the system and not performing, the new dentists that were coming in through the systems we built were so healthy, they were so engaged, they were so in it to win it, that they changed the culture of the company, not the old doctors that were a pain. So, Josey, you remember what that series of events and that turning of the tide was like?
Yes, absolutely. And I see it all the time in the clients that I work with, that sometimes we grow and we evolve and we change, and we have legacy team members who maybe haven't recognized or given us credit for that growth, and they're still holding us back. And sometimes bringing in new people, or even sometimes exiting relationships, can help us change culture. And what I also, while I was listening to you, I was thinking about one very practical application of this is, I was recently working on one of our workshops, which is how to onboard associates appropriately. And in some of the research I was doing, it was saying that sometimes in a very high level position, like in an executive or even like in a dentist, it takes people 12 months to get to where they're really ramped up. And Gary, that's what you're talking about. How do I slow down in order to speed up? And yet, even in the initial period, people fail at onboarding. They think that onboarding is credentialing and getting, your licensing information. And so many people are throwing their doctors in day one to see patients, which is not good for the doctor, for the team, or for the patient. And so how do you build an onboarding system that is efficient with time, but really is about cultural, operational, and clinical integration of this doctor? And that's where a lot of people really fail, is they just don't set them up well.
Yeah. So what does somebody feel like once they go through your program? I want to know who wants to speak from the owner side, and then who wants to speak from the associate side, because it's two radical things. So who wants to go first on the owner side?
I'll take the owner. Josey, you can be the associate.
Okay. So what am I going to feel like? So I'm an owner doctor. I've tried, I've struck out, I'm scared. All the feelings that you go through when you're trying to hire any team member, but it's compounded when it's a dentist. I go through your program. What do I feel like now afterwards?
So I typically see 3 and a secret 4th thing. That's what I'm guessing right now. Number 1, I don't even know where to start, and I feel like I'm all alone. We eliminate that. Finally, you're not alone inside of the process. You're the reason you're in the problem. You've been trying to fix it and it hasn't worked. Finally, you have guides, somebody that's going to take you to where you want to go. The second thing is okay, what in the world do I need to do and in what order, right? Because the whole house is on fire, right? It's funny. I had a house burned down in my neighborhood literally last night. And I was watching the firefighters, and what the firefighters knew, Gary, there's fire coming out of every window. This is so funny. It's worked out perfect. And they knew exactly where to focus the water stream and where to start. I was actually surprised because they broke through the fence in a neighbor's yard to come. I'm like, well, clearly they know where they want to fight this fire from. And so that's the second thing that we give somebody is sitting there and saying, listen, these are things. The third thing we give though is like, and you know what, Gary, I have built weekend programs for people for years. And what do we do in a weekend program? We stand up on stage. You were probably there for half of them. And we say, this is what you do. And that's not enough. And so the third thing that we're doing, the third thing that an owner is going to feel is like, I'm going to give them the whole model in the example and say, here, you can use it as it is, or you can customize the edges of it however you want, but there it is. And so that's the really great thing that somebody's going to feel. Here's the thing, just modify it if you want to or don't. This is all the stuff you need. And now you're not alone anymore and all the questions you have. But there's a secret fourth thing, Gary. And this is like the confession. I've worked with probably more dental CEOs, like one-on-one, as many as most people in this industry. And the secret thing is that most dental CEOs actually don't want to do this. I don't want to. And so if somebody's sitting here listening right now and they're thinking, Eric, I don't really want to do it. That's actually the secret fourth thing that we're delivering inside of this. Yeah, well, it really is the truth. I literally just had a call with somebody that wanted to do it. And they're like, Eric, I'm embarrassed to tell you this, but like, I hate my doctors and I don't want to go through that. And I said, that's cool. Right. Like that's a normal thing. And so what we're going to show you is how other people too can carry the load on this so that this isn't fully or at all your responsibility. We have a number of clients Josey and I have worked with where the owners didn't have to do anything.
That's awesome. They have to initiate it. I run into this all the time on the marketing side. It's like, okay, it's fine. Let's market. And then it's like, whoa, doc, there's process changes that need to happen in your office to be successful. Your front desk or your hygienist can't greenlight those. Like they don't have the authority. So you need to be involved to a level of greenlighting these system changes. And then from there, you can be hands off. So I love that. I know that speaks to a lot of people. Josey, okay, so now I'm the associate. I'm working for this doctor. It hasn't maybe been the greatest working for them so far, but I see them trying and I know they care. How am I going to feel after I come through this program?
Oh, you're going to feel empowered after you go through this program, and you're going to feel in control of what your outcomes are. We interviewed, again, hundreds of associates, and we asked them, are you satisfied with what you're making every month? And they all said, no. And we said, would you like to be more productive? Yes. Do you know how to be more productive? No. And so we have this assumption, like we give people numbers and KPIs and think, oh, if I just have them measure something, they're going to get better, but we don't teach them how to get better. And so they will feel empowered because they will have practical tools and really good mindsets and habits that they can immediately start doing that will help them be more successful with patient interaction, team interaction, and case acceptance. And they'll feel more fulfilled, because one thing that is a really interesting nuance with associates is that we can't manage them or lead them in the way that we do other team members. In fact, what's happening outside of their life is so much more important and like part of the conversation that we have to have with them. And so we have to support them in other ways outside of the operatory. So they're going to find more joy, more fulfillment, and have more control after they go through this program. And the other thing is they're going to have a community of people just like them and have a community of people that are here advocating and supporting them, because many of them feel very alone and very isolated.
That's awesome. So what are some things that people shouldn't go through this program? Who are the people that are like, you know what, this isn't for you. This isn't going to work for you, Dr. Eric?
You know what's interesting, Gary, is I used to say, if you just don't really care about your doctors, don't do this. But you know what's funny is I took on one of those customers because I'm trying everything. And what was interesting is they didn't really care about their doctors. Like they're like, listen, I don't give a crap what goes on in my doctors' lives. I need something to work for the revenue model. And so, well, let's test this. And the truth is, like, it still worked when we were working with the associates. So, like, I was kind of surprised by that. But at the end of the day, Gary, like, the people that really aren't a fit is if you're not willing to accept any measure of change and you just like want to continue on the journey you have. That's really it, because we do as much of the work as we can do for somebody. But at the end of the day, there's still stuff that has to operationally shift and change and get done. That's probably my biggest deal breaker. Josey, what do you think?
I would agree with you. That was actually my first answer, was somebody who didn't care necessarily about their people. But maybe that's the clinical director program. You can actually, if you don't care to invest in your associates, just pay the money and we'll invest in them. And that actually works really great. But yeah, I think you're right. If they just don't want to change and they like to be in this like victim kind of mentality, then they're not going to enjoy this program at all.
And the dental industry has enough of those victims. So like there's enough people that won't be a fit.
You're gonna learn one way or another. The business world is, in dental especially, is going to teach you how to do things the way that it should be done, one way or the other. Well, this was great. I love that you guys are tackling this. You are extremely brave, because this is the biggest issue in the dental industry. And I love that you guys care. That's the part that I love, is that you guys are like, what is the actual biggest problem? Because you could have just slapped together a book and said, here's a book, go take it. But you already knew that wouldn't work. Because you've seen that firsthand. And so I love that. And so you have several boot camps coming up, virtual boot camps, June 6th, which is right around the corner. Down below, there's a code, Gary50, and this is going to cost you a whopping $27 to come. So maybe if you can't afford, another person who wouldn't be able to, that you wouldn't be a good customer if they can't afford $27 to pay for the boot camps. And there's one for the doctors. Is that right? There's one for the owner doctors and one for the associates. Did I get that right?
Honestly, this one boot camp, Gary, it's for everybody. You can actually bring your clinical team too. Like, bring who you want to bring to this. Like, I understand that a lot of owner doctors like want to like tap out and have somebody else solve this. So send who you want to send. We only put a price tag on it, like to just help people commit and like make time in their schedule for it. But in a single day, we are going to show people absolutely everything. They'll walk away with everything they need to know if they want to build this out. Like, it's all the tools, all the stuff. It's all right there. If you're ever wondering, what would Eric Roman do to build out a great clinical leadership structure and take great care of associates, in a single day, we'll hand over every little bit of it. And then everybody gets to decide what they want to do with it. You know, the best of the best, this is all they'll need. They'll implement and win the day.
That's awesome. You guys did a great job. Thanks so much for coming on. If somebody wants to reach out to you directly, what's the best way to connect with you, Josey?
My email, josey@joseysewell.com. You can find me on all social media channels underneath Josey Sewell, as long as you spell it right, and would be happy to connect.
We'll put that down in the show notes below. And Dr. Eric, how about you?
Hey, it sounds pretty similar. Eric at drericjroman.com. You can find me all over social, depending on what day of the week it is. So yeah, hit me that way, and I'd love to tell anybody more.
Awesome.